week, and I'm going to do something a little bit different that I haven't tried before. Work with a glazing technique using the pattern and maybe some sort of glossiness to see what I can do with the surface to kind of make it shimmer maybe a little bit. Total experiment. Don't know if it'll do it, but we'll find out, right? So I'm going to start here by mixing up some color, kind of show you what I do in case you decide you want to try out any of these techniques I'm working on your own, and I'll start mixing. So I decided to go with sort of a transparent reddish orange and a transparent greenish brown. So I've got olive green, raw umber, and then a mixture of cadmium orange, red shade, and alizarin crimson, which are all fantastic colors. And then I'll mix them together. And I think with this, to get the transparency that I want, I'm going to use quite a lot of Galkyd. Galkyd is nice because it's a fast drying medium. So if you live in kind of a damp climate, that actually really helps. So this is this orange. I think that I think maybe I'll just keep the Galkyd on the side. That's what I tend to do, is I put a kind of pool of it on my palette, or I could even like get a little kind of glass dish, which I might try to find, and pour this stuff in, because it does dry fast, and if you like pour it all over your palette, then all of a sudden you've got this crazy film of, you know, just glossiness that dried up really quickly. So you might not want that. So having a little bit of a dish on the side to just dip into every time is kind of easy. If you mix it into your paint, you know, obviously that works for that painting session, but if you kind of want to keep that same color and use it again, you'll have to, you know, not put that Galkyd in so that it won't dry out so quickly. So I have a painting rag. I just wiped off my palette knife. I'm going to mix up this sort of brownish green I'm going to use. And then I couldn't quite find a glass dish today, but I'm going to bring one from home tomorrow. So for this painting session, I'm going to have to make do with what's around the studio here. So I'm pretty happy with those two colors, I think. We'll see how bright that looks, I'm not sure. And I'll just pour some Galkyd in. So if I want like a lot of transparency, I'm gonna use a lot of Galkyd. You know, I just dip a little bit into that paint and put the Galkyd in, and you can kind of see how translucent that is. So that's how it looks like on my palette with one color. And then I'll try to keep my brushes separate, just because it's easier, so that I don't contaminate the color. This one looks pretty opaque, so you can kind of tell, you know, cadmium tends to be very opaque, so I might have to use like a really large amount of the Galkyd, or maybe add in a little bit more of the alizarin crimson, which I think I'm gonna do. Which alizarin crimson is naturally somewhat transparent, so, and a little bit more of like a toning down of that orange color might be a good idea anyway. And you just keep kind of testing it a little bit on the side before you start, until you get the quality and the color that you want. But yeah, beware of the cadmiums. They're a beautiful color, but they are very opaque. So here's this one. That's by itself. Can add in some transparency. You know, I might have to finagle with it a bit while I get it on the piece, but you can see it's quite a bit more transparent than that one is. So I think I'm pretty satisfied with how those are gonna look for me. See there? I tried a little bit of this line work with the glaze that I mixed up. I decided to, and I ended up, you know, adding the Galkyd in with the color because of the inconsistency of the transparency. So, I mean, I like how that looks, but then I was thinking that I have two colors, but there's kind of a greenish brown, but I think it blends in too much with the color I have behind there, so I'm gonna make it more brown. And then I was thinking overall, you know, the surface is a bit too white for me. So I'm gonna kind of switch gears for a moment and give an all over kind of transparent glaze to the whole surface. I think maybe kind of a bluish gray So I think I'll try that next and then revert back to the pattern and refine the color a bit, and then I think I should have what I want. The other thing I forgot to mention is that it's easier to do something with the sides early on in the painting versus later, because what will happen is you'll get a bunch of stuff and it'll just be kind of looking messy, and if you want to show it, and cleaning it up takes time if you get a bunch of splatters or whatever else on there. So what I do often, not always, I'm not perfect, but take your tape and just put it across the edge there, all the way down, and then you can make sure that you paint all the way out to the edges of the painting, and you're still gonna have a nice crisp edge on it, because I don't frame my paintings, and so this gives it kind of a nice professional look without having to frame it, which I think looks kind of strange on some paintings, at least on mine. Not on others, certainly. So, you know, it takes a little time, but it's worth the effort, because then you can just paint away, fill it all the way out, and then later on you remove it and it looks really nice. So I'm using a little bit of Davies gray and monochrome kind of tint color, along with another drawing medium which isn't glossy, not the Galkid Light, but this one is called Liquid. You know, with all of these mediums that you use, even with oil painting, just remember also that you need, you know, a mask or proper ventilation in your studio, or do it outside, which is nice. And then you can kind of see like what's happening with the glaze. I'm using a lot of medium and just a pale glaze. It's going over and affecting the color of the painting I have underneath, as well as the drawing as on top, the drawing underneath, and it's in addition sealing off this surface. So when I did the absorbent ground, you make all these layers and it creates a kind of coarse surface, which are kind of like pores in your skin, and they'll keep sucking, you know, your paint into that surface until you kind of seal it off. So this is doing, you know, it's basically serving two purposes. One is to colorize the painting, but also to sort of seal off that drawing and additionally protect the surface so I can add in more layers of paint. You'll also notice that I'm using a dry brush along with a wet brush, so that I can smooth it out and make it a really nice, thin, even coat across the full piece. So I lay the paint down with the wet brush and then just kind of spread it around with the dry brush and remove any kind of unwanted, noticeable painting marks. And then the effect is going to be one where I have a bit more of a color and tint to the work, and then I can add in my preceding layers from there. Adding the pattern in. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So you can see how I was messing around with the transparency and it creates kind of an optical effect. Well, the next stage is to figure out where I want to, you know, add in figures here and there. And hopefully soon I will finish this one.